Whew, all right, the NFL draft is almost here, and the 2024 class, it's looking like one of the best classes that we've seen in forever. So what I did for the first time ever, check this out. I made my own mock draft. Yeah, I cannot wait to share this with you. I really dug deep. I did all my research, even though I don't watch college football. I'm gonna do a no trade mock draft just because I think trades are a little too unpredictable. I think that throws in too many what ifs into the draft. So I think it's just gonna be better if I just do no trades. You'll get it. There are 3 teams that are not picking in the first round, which I will not be discussing today. Those being the Panthers, Browns, and Texans. I will not be talking about them in this video. This is the NFL draft hat. I bought this, they looked really good this year. Check this out. They got the little state, little slogan there. I can't wait to see who puts this hat on stage in just a couple days. So let's get right into the first pick, and I think we all know who it's gonna be.
At number 1, the Chicago Bears select quarterback Caleb Williams, Southern California. After trading away Justin Fields, Ryan Poles is left with the easiest decision of his career. Take the best quarterback prospect that we've seen in several years. There were a lot of Justin Fields supporters who wanted him to stay where he was. He did have some incredible highlights as of late, but Justin's time in Chicago was done as soon as they got to pick number 1 overall. So now, Caleb Williams' expectations are immediate greatness. Now, I think Caleb Williams is the most talented quarterback in class, but man, his hype train is running off the rails. People think he's going to be the next Mahomes, and that's just so unfair to anybody coming into the draft and any quarterback going to the Chicago Bears. Remember when Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be the next Peyton Manning? And where are we now? The jury's still out. But I think Williams is in a position to make Chicago history at least, and be the first Bears quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards in a season. A testament to the fact that the Bears have never had an elite quarterback in their century-long history, so hopefully Williams is the first exception. He'll have a great wideout tandem in Keenan Allen and DJ Moore to work with, and an allegedly good O-line if they can stay healthy. At number 2, the Washington Commanders select quarterback Jaden Daniels, Louisiana State. Jaden Daniels looks like he'll be the new face of Washington for years to come. The Commanders need a quarterback badly after grinding Sam Howell into dust and spreading that red mist over Seattle. And Jaden Daniels is going to be the most intriguing quarterback to watch for me because he was electrifying last season, throwing for 3,800 yards and 40 touchdowns while running for 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns himself, with a QBR of 95.6 out of 100. Do I think Washington is a good fit for him? No, but I don't think Washington is good for anybody. Dan Quinn is the new head coach and is being looked at as one of the worst coaching hires this offseason. They still have a terrible O-line. They spent their historic cap money mostly on washed-up veterans. They have a single elite receiving threat, and they play in a division that they can't possibly contend in. Oh, and Jaden Daniels only took 22 sacks behind LSU's O-line last season, so he might be in for a rude awakening. At number 3, the New England Patriots select quarterback Drake May, North Carolina. The Patriots are taking whoever the Commanders aren't, and it looks like that'll be Drake May. Drake's been the starting quarterback at UNC for 2 seasons, putting up 2 great seasons back-to-back with hardly any big receivers to work with. So he'll fit right in on the Patriots as he'll have nothing to work with, a terrible O-line, and no elite receivers, with hardly any elite defensive players to help. No matter what, the Patriots are finishing bottom in the AFC East, so, lucky for Drake, his only expectation is to be better than Mac Jones was, and by all accounts he should be if he meshes with new head coach Gerard Mayo. And if he's good, then the Patriots' future could look bright very soon because the way I see it, and no one wants to talk about this, there's potential that Aaron Rodgers, Tua Tagovailoa, and Josh Allen all leave the AFC East in 2025, which leaves a massive power vacuum in the AFC and in the division that could possibly be filled by a brand new rookie quarterback in Drake May. Who knows? At number 4, the Arizona Cardinals select wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., Ohio State. If the Cardinals actually trade down here without getting an existing elite wide receiver out of it, then Monty Austin-Fort should be put in prison. Kyler needs a wide receiver very badly. It's bad enough that he's making as much as he is despite doing nothing to have earned that contract, but you have to put him in the best position to succeed. If anybody out there can name a current Cardinals wide receiver without looking it up, then you have an unhealthy obsession with the NFL. And no, Hollywood Brown doesn't count, he went to the Chiefs. Marvin Harrison Jr. is far and away the best wide receiver prospect in class, finishing with 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns for the Buckeyes last season, and he could give Kyler the first elite wide receiver he's had since DeAndre Hopkins left. He also stands at 6'4", which makes him one of the tallest wide receivers in the current league. Together with Kyler Murray, they can maybe get second place in the NFC West. At number 5, the Los Angeles Chargers select wide receiver Malik Neighbors, Louisiana State. Originally, I had the farm bet on the Chargers taking tight end Brock Bowers and forming an Andy Reid offense with very few wide receivers and a big tight end and a strong defense. But then Mike Williams went to the Jets, and then I looked at the depth charts, and wide receiver quickly became the biggest need. Malik Neighbors is a fantastic wide receiver who led Jaden Daniels to much of his success, recording 1,500 yards and 14 touchdowns last season. Neighbors will be expected to be a savior, as this was a team that once had Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, prime Austin Eckler, and a quarterback that could throw for 5,000 yards in a season. Now that all of that's gone, Neighbors will be one of many to start to bring it all back. At number 6, the New York Giants select wide receiver Rome Odunze, Washington. Daniel Jones is a laughingstock, vastly overpaid, and is maybe facing his final year as a starting quarterback in the NFL. But in his defense, he was never put in a position to succeed. He's never had an elite wide receiver to throw to, and his O-line has always been bad. The Giants' need at wide receiver is dire. They haven't had a 1,000-yard wide receiver since Odell Beckham Jr. in 2018. You know, can't relate. So I think they have no choice but to go to the best wide receiver available, which will be Rome Odunze, who racked up 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns for Washington last year on their road to losing the Nationals. Standing at 6'3", he'll also be a taller wide receiver, which will hopefully keep Danny Derps and Brian Dable from losing their jobs. Their O-line will continue to suck, yes it will, but they need an elite receiver more than anything. I mean, I can't say they haven't tried drafting elite wide receiver talent. Kadarius Toney looked great in college, but we know how that turned out. At number 7, the Tennessee Titans select offensive tackle Joe Alt, Notre Dame. The Titans have gone through a shockingly aggressive offseason and are making a real effort to have Will Levis succeed. But the biggest problem remains the O-line. For at least 2 seasons, it has stayed bottom of the league. And they've been drafting and signing linemen, taking left guard Peter Skoronski at 11th overall last year, and signing a great center in Lloyd Cushenberry this offseason. But it still sucks. So why not take the best O-lineman in class and the massive 6'8", 315-pound Joe Alt? Taking an O-lineman would also help their new running back Tony Pollard get bigger holes to run through, because while Derrick Henry's big ass could overcome having a bad O-line, Tony probably can't. At number 8, the Atlanta Falcons select linebacker Dallas Turner, Alabama. I do think there is big potential for the Falcons to trade down here, seeing as their team is already pretty stacked on all fronts, and they don't need to pick this high. But I'm doing this whole mock assuming no trades because I want to keep the speculation as small as possible. So, if I were them, I would just take linebacker Dallas Turner, who's being touted as the best defensive player in class. Atlanta finished 17th in scoring defense last season and did lose Bud Dupree and Calais Campbell during the offseason, so Dallas Turner makes the most sense only because they're already set at every other position. New head coach Raheem Morris is also a defensive coach, so I think he would love to take Turner and make him his passion project. At number 9, the Chicago Bears select corner Kenyon Mitchell, Toledo. Yeah, the Bears have 2 picks in the top 10. If they don't trade down here, then I think they should go defensive back, and the best DB in class would be Kenyon Mitchell. I know they just extended Jalen Johnson, who had the highest PFF grade of all corners, and that's great, but you know what's better than 1 elite corner? 2. His buddy Tyreek Stevenson showed flashes, netting 4 interceptions last season, but he was also the second most targeted corner and allowed the second most receptions. It was his rookie year, but having great defensive depth, especially in the secondary, is something that would really help the Bears fight the NFC North. And during the past few years, taking corners in the top 10 picks has been working out great lately, hasn't it? At number 10, the New York Jets select offensive tackle Olu Fashanu, Penn State. The Aaron Rodgers signing and since season-ending injury has put the Jets in a frantic position. If they don't win the Super Bowl, the season is a failure and they'll be doomed to go back to quarterback hell unless Aaron Rodgers re-signs, which I doubt. The O-line was atrocious last season and got Rodgers killed 4 plays into his first game. So they set out to get the best possible guys to patch it. Morgan Moses at right tackle, Tyron Smith at left tackle, John Simpson at left guard, and prayers that Elijah Vera Tucker can stay healthy. Those are all great signings, so here's my advice. Keep going. I'm not the first to point this out, but both of their starting tackles were drafted when Obama was president. They're both 33 years old, and Tyron Smith notably gets season-ending injuries pretty frequently. So take the next best O-lineman in Olu Fashanu and power up your depth, or move him to left guard or right guard if possible. Aaron cannot go down again. At number 11, the Minnesota Vikings select quarterback J.J. McCarthy, Michigan. With Kirk Cousins leaving Minnesota after 6 seasons, I think the Vikings' window for anything is closed for a good couple of seasons, especially now that the NFC North is loaded. So it's time to start developing a new quarterback, and the next best one would be J.J. McCarthy. Fresh off of a national title in Michigan with coach Jim Harbaugh, finishing 3rd in QBR at 88.2, but throwing for just shy of 3,000 yards and only 22 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. The Mac Jones comparisons have come flooding in, as they had similar college careers, both winning the Nationals without really putting up elite statistics and getting overvalued as a result. And no, I am here to debunk this today. The Vikings are not trading up into the top 10 to take him. That is fake news coming from media within the top 10 picking teams to pressure the Vikings into stupidly trading someone like Justin Jefferson to them to guarantee Minnesota's spot at taking JJ, when the spot at taking JJ is not in danger at all. Look at these teams picking between 4 and 10. None of them are going quarterback. The only danger, I guess, would be the Broncos jumping up and taking him before the Vikings, but like, bro, jumping up with what? But hey, the Vikings are a pretty damn good landing spot for a new quarterback. Probably the best of the 5 quarterback picking teams I have in the first round. A decent defense, a good coaching staff, low expectations, a top 10 O-line, and the best wide receiver in the league to throw to if Jefferson stays on the team. If he does, then imagine the marketing they could sell if McCarthy ends up being good. JJ and JJ. They can trademark that and do something with it, I'm sure. At number 12, the Denver Broncos select quarterback Bo Nix, Oregon. Unfortunately for Denver, with the Vikings taking JJ McCarthy, they're now forced to make a massive reach and take quarterback Bo Nix, who's coming off of a phenomenal season in Oregon, throwing for an amazing 4,500 yards, 45 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. Finishing 2nd in QBR at 91.2 behind Jaden Daniels. But you're probably wondering, why is this a massive reach? How is he not better than J.J. McCarthy with these stats? This guy was debatably the best quarterback in college ball last season, wasn't he? Well, yeah, he was, but he has a terrible, terrible secret. He's 24 years old. Most players enter the draft at 22 years old at most. This may not sound like a big deal, but you want your newly drafted players, especially in the first round, and especially your quarterback, to be as young as possible for contract, financial, and longevity reasons. The rule goes now that anybody born before 9/11 is looked at like,
dude, what the f***? Why are you f***ing here, man? You're so old. Where's your wife? Go home to your family, dude.
But he is the next best quarterback just because you cannot overlook these statistics. They are masterful. And the Broncos' need at quarterback is way more dire than the Vikings right now. Like, at least the Vikings have a possible bridge quarterback in Sam Darnold. The Broncos have former Raiders backup Jarrett Stidham and former XFL quarterback Ben DiNucci. That's it. Even with Bo Nix, I still think the Broncos are a lottery team next season, and if they do take Nix, then that kind of sinks my crackpot theory about them completely tanking and firing Sean Payton, hiring Deion Sanders as head coach, and then drafting Shedeur at number 1. But let's keep the speculation as little as possible, right? At number 13, the Las Vegas Raiders select offensive tackle Talise Fuaga, Oregon State. I almost had them taking Michael Penix Jr. here, but then I looked at what they're paying Gardner Minshew, and yeah, that's not backup money. So the quarterback carousel goes round and round as the Raiders are hoping for a Baker Mayfield season from Gardner Minshew after seeing 6 games of Jimmy G and deciding it's time to burn it all down. So while you're doing that, why not start to take some young talent for your terrible O-line? Talise Fuaga is up there with the top 5 O-linemen in the draft and should give some much needed help in the trenches. It'll be the first of many steps the Raiders need to take, but they have plenty of time because they don't need to worry about winning the West for a long time. At number 14, the New Orleans Saints select tight end Brock Bowers, Georgia. A lot of you might think it'd be wild for Brock to fall out of the top 10, but realistically, if the Chargers aren't taking him, then he's probably going to be there at 14 for the Saints to pick up. I mean, the Jets might take Brock Bowers, but I don't see it. Brock Bowers is being touted as the best tight end prospect of all time. Now, does that mean he'll be another Gronkowski, or will he be another Kyle Pitts? I don't know, but the Saints would gladly take either. After cutting wide receiver Michael Thomas, putting up with a whelming year from Derek Carr, and just barely missing out on winning the division, they wanted Brock Bowers to help take their offense over the edge, and by all accounts, he should make an instant impact. Sorry to any Jawan Johnson fans out there. At number 15, the Indianapolis Colts select corner Terrion Arnold, Alabama. Pretty simple. The Colts lost Stephon Gilmore and Isaiah Rodgers the season prior, so the best thing they could do here is go DB and take the next best talent in Terrion Arnold. They can drop him right next to Kenny Moore II, who did pretty well last season. I could also see the Colts possibly trading down here if they want to pick maybe a wide receiver to pair with the newly extended MPJ, but you know, minimal speculation. At number 16, the Seattle Seahawks select edge Jared Verse, Florida State. The Seahawks have a good team right now, but their biggest weakness by far was stopping the run. They finished 31st in rush yards allowed and lost Bobby Wagner again during the offseason. So they need to patch that up by taking a defensive trenches player in Jared Verse. They could also pick Liadu Latu here if they wanted, but either would be great for Seattle. And I'm sure that Seattle's new head coach Mike Macdonald, the former Ravens defensive coordinator, would love to take him. Seattle already finished top 10 in sack percentage this past season, but why not shoot for more? If you look at the NFC West right now, the 49ers got the number 1 spot guaranteed, but the second place spot and a probable wildcard spot at that, I mean, I can make a case for the Seahawks, Rams, or the Cardinals, any of them making it, so there's going to be some fierce competition for that second place spot. At number 17, the Jacksonville Jaguars select corner Cooper DeJean, Iowa. Cooper would be the first cornerback taken if not for the injury that he took in November, where he had to get season-ending surgery on his fibula and missed the final 4 games for Iowa, including the Big Ten title game. So he's going to slip, but not for long, as he was recently cleared for all football activities, and his recent pro day has been getting a lot of media coverage. And the Jaguars need themselves some secondary, finishing 26th in pass yards allowed last season, and losing starting safety Rayshawn Jenkins and starting corner Darius Williams. He's also a skilled punt returner, so you get to draft defense and special teams. It's not stopping the Jaguars from imploding on themselves again, but it is a great opportunity to ramp up your defense against the AFC South, who now might have the best receivers in the league overall. So you need to make sure your secondary is good or you're going to get torn up. At number 18, the Cincinnati Bengals select D-line Byron Murphy II, Texas. The Bengals still cannot stop the run, finished with just an okay sack percentage, and lost D-lineman DJ Reader to the Lions. So it makes sense to find a great replacement in the trenches in Byron Murphy, who's contending with Jer'Jon Newton as the best-in-class defensive tackle. I'll give Byron the edge though, just because he's a bigger name, but the Bengals could go either or. It is paramount for the Bengals that they find young superstars that they don't have to pay for a while, because the bill has already come due for players like Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, and soon, Jamar Chase. So they'll have their hands tied for a season or two and cannot afford to miss on the cheap young talent. And Byron is the best prospect in his position, but in the North, he'll have to go against Derrick Henry in Baltimore, Cleveland's O-line with Nick Chubb, and the Steelers. so hopefully he'll be up to the task. At number 19, the Los Angeles Rams select edge rusher Laiadu Latu, California, Los Angeles. So if Seattle does go edge, then the Rams are just taking whoever they don't, and hopefully the Rams get to take the dominant Laiadu Latu. I like this for them because obviously Aaron Donald has retired as one of the best to ever do it. But also, the Rams finished pretty low in sack percentage, especially for a team boasting Donald. I also like Laiadu to the Rams because he's coming out of UCLA, so how great would that be for him to stay in LA and continue into his NFL career? He was also born and raised in Sacramento, California, so his whole family presumably lives in Cali. It's a match made in heaven for both of them, so much so that I could even see the Rams trading up to ensure they get him. At number 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers select wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr., Louisiana State. The Steelers got a great deal on a 2014 used Seattle Super Bowl quarterback in fair condition. The old owner of the quarterback recently filed for bankruptcy, so the Steelers ended up getting it 97% off with no interest rate for a full year. But to ensure they get the most mileage out of it, they should pick up a new wide receiver in Brian Thomas Jr. Better known as Not Malik Neighbors, Thomas racked up 1,200 yards and 17 touchdowns last season and stands at 6'4". So after sending Deontay Johnson into exile, aka Carolina, the Steelers need to pick up a replacement to work with George Pickens. Thomas is easily the best offensive player currently available at number 20 and should be an easy win for GM Omar Khan. At number 21, the Miami Dolphins select D lineman Jer'Jon Newton, Illinois. Miami went through a rough offseason, especially for their defense, losing Deshaun Elliott, Jerome Baker, Andrew Van Ginkel, and most importantly, the dominant Christian Wilkins. He went to Las Vegas when Miami just couldn't outbid the Raiders, so that leaves a massive hole in the trenches that needs filling, and Jer'Jon Newton should be up to the task. Miami is in a major power struggle in the East. The Bills look vulnerable without Diggs, and who knows how the Jets will do this season, so now's not the time to be relaxed in the offseason. They need to make sure that they plug any big holes that they have, and Christian Wilkins left a big one. At number 22, the Philadelphia Eagles select center Jackson Powers Johnson, Oregon. Likely the only interior O-lineman that will be taken in the first round. And what better spot for JPJ than Philly following Jason Kelce's retirement? You know, no pressure. I don't think that a center was ever more important to a team's success than Jason Kelce was. He was an elite O-lineman at all times despite his age, and through him, the Eagles were able to design one of the most unstoppable plays in the NFL. The tush push, a standard quarterback sneak, but the elite O-line plows forward while the running back, receivers, and tight end shove Jalen Hurts from behind. In 1-yard situations, it nearly guaranteed a first down or a touchdown. NFL owners even attempted to ban the play because it was so strong, but it remains legal this season. You know, many teams tried to replicate the tush push, but couldn't do it because the tush push is unique to the best O-line in the league. Without Jason Kelce as the leader of the tush push, however, can they still do their iconic play? Well, why not take the best interior O-line in class and find out. At number 23, the Minnesota Vikings select corner Nate Wiggins, Clemson. Assuming that the Vikings don't package this pick to trade up, which they shouldn't do, they need to take more secondary. They finished with the highest allowed completion percentage in the league, and Nate Wiggins could be a day one starter for this Vikings defense, which went through a really good offseason, signing Andrew Van Ginkel and Blake Cashman. Minnesota looks like they're still trying to compete in the North, and honestly, their team on paper looks really solid. Minnesota will be the best landing spot of the 5 quarterback drafting teams, and improving the secondary will make it even safer. Nate Wiggins also ran a 4.29 in the combine, but kinda hurt himself in the process. Shouldn't be serious, but it did hit his draft stock ever slightly, so he'll be a good pickup at 23. At number 24, the Dallas Cowboys select offensive tackle Troy Fautanu, Washington. The Cowboys are scared to make any moves because after this season, the bill is due. Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb are officially in contract seasons, and so are Brandon Cooks and Zach Martin. As a result, the Cowboys aren't spending any money until they find out if Dak is going to command over $60 million a year in his next contract. So they couldn't keep any of their free agents, including left tackle Tyron Smith and center Tyler Biadasz, 2 very big linemen leaving after Dak put up a masterclass season. Now's not the time to leave him vulnerable, especially when you're still in hot contention with the Eagles in the East. So the next best lineman is going to be the 6'4", 317-pound Troy Fautanu. The Cowboys don't really need any other position filled that badly, so this should be a very obvious pick for Jerry. right? At number 25, the Green Bay Packers select wide receiver Adonai Mitchell, Texas. Jordan Love became the North's worst nightmare. Another competent quarterback. The Packers have known nothing but luxury with their quarterbacks and intend on competing in the North and the NFC once again. They entered as a 7th seed this year and damn near won in round 2 versus the 49ers, but came up just short. So how do they rebound to get a second chance? Well, despite Jordan Love's outstanding season, none of his wide receivers broke 1,000 yards. Actually, none of them even got close. So I think they take the best wide receiver available for their 2 or 3 spots, which is shaping up to be Adonai Mitchell. The 6'4" Texas receiver finished with 850 yards and 11 touchdowns, and should provide Love with some great depth at wide receiver. At number 26, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select corner Kool-Aid McKinstry, Alabama. In ancient history, Kool-Aid was believed to be the best corner in the 2024 class, but lately he slipped to 5th or 6th best for reasons I don't understand. I don't watch college football. It might be the foot injury that he recently sustained, which will require surgery, so I'm sure that did a number on his draft stock. But hey, if he's available at 26, then I want Jason all over this man. The Bucs finished bottom 5 in passing yards allowed and traded their starting corner Carlton Davis to the Lions. This leaves a big hole to be filled as our depth at corner got better, I think, but we need a starter. And I would love for Kool-Aid to do that for us. I just hope that he won't be as injury prone as Carlton or Dean, because what we need is a corner that can stay healthy for 17 games. At number 27, the Arizona Cardinals select offensive tackle J.C. Latham, Alabama. This draft needs to be all about Kyler Murray. Presumably he has Marvin Harrison Jr. now, so now you need to give him a good O-line. Despite their best efforts, Arizona's O-line is still bad. Last draft they took offensive tackle Paris Johnson Jr. at 6th overall upon Kyler's personal request, and Paris had a pretty rocky rookie season by the looks of it, but a lot of great linemen aren't immediately amazing at it, so I don't think we need to overreact. But still, hey, don't stop drafting them. J.C. Latham should be the next best lineman available and can be a starting right tackle in place of Jonah Williams. At number 28, the Buffalo Bills select wide receiver Ladd McConkey, Georgia. Just go best wide receiver available. Whether the Bills trade up midway for Brian Thomas Jr. or drastically for Neighbors or Odunze, or if they need to at all, Buffalo needs wide receiver help. They lost Gabe Davis to the Jags and finally caved to Stephon Diggs' years of distracting antics and years of not performing when it mattered and flung him over to Houston. Is Josh Allen as screwed as everyone thinks he is? Probably not, but the Bills certainly lost their grip on the East thanks to their disastrous offseason, and it could be anyone's game, except for the Patriots. Ladd McConkey is a standard scrappy white boy slot receiver like Hunter Renfrow, who is still a free agent by the way, and could easily take the starter job from, I guess, Mac Hollins? At number 29, the Detroit Lions select corner Ennis Rakestraw Jr., Missouri. The Lions made it all the way to round 3 this year before flaming out thanks to Dan Campbell gambling way too much and losing it all. Their offense is perhaps the best in the league, but the defense is still really struggling, finishing 25th in scoring and 31st in pass yards allowed. So surely they need to address what is one of the worst secondaries in the league. CJ Gardner-Johnson was supposed to be the secondary savior, but that didn't work out. He came in from Philly, talked a bunch of trash, got hurt for the entire season, and then dipped back to Philly. So now their current corner tandem is 2 newcomers in Carlton Davis and Amik Robertson, and I think they could use some depth. Rakestraw looks to be the next best DB and could even start over Robertson. But trust me, when you have Carlton as your number 1 corner, you're going to want someone reliable who can play at a moment's notice. At number 30, the Baltimore Ravens select wide receiver Xavier Worthy, Texas. It just doesn't stop with Baltimore. They still need wide receiver help. They took Zay Flowers in the first round last season, who had a very good rookie season. Until he didn't. And Odell Beckham Jr. showed up for a quick $15 million just to put up worse numbers than Elijah Moore, and then he left. In 3 playoff games, he had 4 catches for 34 yards. So if the Ravens want to get a second chance to go to the Super Bowl, they have to do better than this. Xavier Worthy was supposed to be a round 3 or 4 wide receiver early on, but then this happened. A 4.21 dash at the combine, an NFL record. So he's being shot up to like a late first or early second and should be there for the Ravens to take. But is Worthy going to be a great NFL wide receiver, or is he just a track star? I mean, first off, he is skinny, weighing in at just 172 pounds at 6'1". A great athletic body he's got, like that's peak fitness. I wish I was 172 pounds, and that's perfect for sprinting, but for the NFL, you want some good meat on your bones. Like Chris Godwin, for example, also 6'1", but he's 208 pounds, 36 pounds more than Worthy. I mean, yeah, Zay Flowers is 172 pounds as well, but he's 5'9". Out of curiosity, I went back and looked up the previous 10 combine record holders, and yeah, none of them had great NFL careers. So for the Ravens' sake, I hope he's not too overvalued. At number 31, the San Francisco 49ers select offensive tackle Amarius Mims, Georgia. An ugly truth came out about the 49ers that they didn't want to acknowledge. Their O-line isn't actually that good. Don't believe me? Name a current Niners O-lineman not named Trent Williams. Amarius Mims could provide some excellent depth, if not a probable starting position this coming season. If the Niners want their fifth chance to win their next Super Bowl, then they need to bolster that O-line for Purdy. They haven't made a single move regarding O-line yet, so this can be their first. And finally, at number 32, the Kansas City Chiefs select wide receiver Keon Coleman, Florida State. The reigning repeat champions probably just proved that they don't need elite wide receivers or even good wide receivers to win championships, but they should still go wide receiver. The Hollywood Brown pickup was okay, and hey, Rashee Rice had a really good rookie season. It would suck if he went to prison. Keon Coleman is looking like a very good wide receiver coming out of Florida State, standing at 6'4" and finishing with 650 yards and 11 touchdowns last season for the Seminoles. He sounds like a big red zone threat Mahomes could use when Kelsey is triple covered in the end zone.
And there we have it. That is my full first round mock draft. And in my next video, we're going to go over just how wrong I was about everything. And I'm going to visit what picks I got wrong and why, and what I think about what they did instead. And then I don't know what I'm going to do, because there's going to be 6 months of nothing. But I'll figure it out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the next video, and I hope you subscribe to support my future career in NFL media. Take care.